Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto Uzumaki, it is regret that I must inform you that you are hereby banished from Konohagakure no Sato. Your ninja license is hereby revoked and you cannot return to Konohagakure as long as you live. If you appear within the borders of Fire Country, then you will beat on sight. A blonde-haired woman who was hiding under a henge to conceal her true age, while the gathered civilian council members smirked or held looks of satisfaction, while the shinobi side held looks of disdain. You monster! Look what you have done to Sasuke. You demon! I hate you. I wish you were dead. A pink-haired teenager of 12. You did this to your teammate. You are worse than trash. You are scum. A lazy, aloof sensei. You are too troublesome to remain here. You better leave. Almost goated because of you. Bummer. A lazy slacker with a pineapple-style haircut. My mom was right about you. You're nothing but a damn demon. I'll you the next time I see you again. A feral-looking boy with a white puppy, standing next to a feral-looking older woman with a black one-eyed wolf. It is most unyouthful to have such a demon in our village. You should leave. A boy with bush brows dressed in green spandex. You lied to me. You were fated to become the Nine Tails. There is no way one can escape fate. Never show your face here again, or I will you. A boy with cold pupil-less lavender eyes. Before you go, please know that I love you. I always loved you. A girl with the same eyes as her cousin. Blue eyes snapped open. After a moment, he realized that he was in his bedroom, on his side, his body pressed up against his wife's backside, one arm around her torso. His spacious bedroom, a stark contrast as to his old bedroom back in Konoha. Konoha. That was one place that he would rather not think about. Come to think about it, it was 8 years today that he was banished from his home, back when he was a boisterous, loudmouth genin. Back when his major desire was simply to become Hokage and to earn the respect of the village. He chuckled at the irony. He was not the fire shadow of Konoha. No, he was much bigger. The emperor of the Western Empire. With a groan, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze assumed a seated position in the king-sized bed. It was safe to say that in the 7 years following his banishment, that he had changed. 20 years old, and with a wiry, muscular frame which hid his true strength well. Standing at 6 feet tall with unruly reddish blonde hair, the whisker-like marks gone from his face, he was the spitting image of his father, Minato Namikaze, but had his mother's trademark temper when roused. It all began 8 years ago, in the aftermath of the mission to retrieve his former teammate Sasuke Uchiha from his attempted defection to Orochimaru. Despite suffering numerous injuries in the ensuing battle, including a chidori to the lung, Naruto was successful in bringing Sasuke back to Konoha. However, it was while he was recovering, that sinister events were underway. The Konoha Council, which made up of the shinobi clan heads and the influential civilian clan and business leaders, had charged him with assaulting a fellow Konoha ninja and assaulting the last of the Uchiha clan, while conveniently overlooking the fact that Sasuke had attempted to defect from Konoha. The Warhawk, Danzo Shimura, Konoha Mercantile Guild head Asuna Haruno, Hyuga clan head Hiyashi Hyuga, and the 2 senior advisors Kaharu Utane and Hanmura Mitokado spearheaded the assault. Within hours, the council had overrode Tsunade and had declared Naruto guilty. Tsunade, however, was able to keep Naruto from being executed, but his reward for doing his job was a lifetime banishment from Konoha, of which the entire council has backed. Desperate for the younger generation to see that Naruto was a hero, Tsunade had told them about the circumstances of his birth, of how the Yondaime had sealed the 9-tailed fox spirit inside his body. Unfortunately, that backfired. Naruto's teammates from Sakura Haruno to Shikamaru Nara instead saw him as the 9 Tails reborn. Especially Sakura, who had called for Naruto's execution, both for beating Sasuke down and for being the container to the 9 Tails. Iruka Yumino was among those who had forsaken him, as was his sensei, Kakashi Hatake. Kiba Inuzuka and his mother, Sume, both threatened to him should they ever see him again, as did Neji Hyuga. Even Tsunade was annoyed with Naruto's pestering about Sasuke's well-being despite being injured himself, and Jiraiya was nowhere to be seen. The only people who supported him were the Konohamaru Corps, Konohamaru Sarutobi, grandson to the late Hiruzen Sarutobi, Moegi and Udon, the ramen shop owner Tuki and his daughter Ayane, and Hinata Hyuga, who finally mustered the courage to tell him her feelings before being escorted by Metagai and Asuma Sarutobi to the city gates. Banishment would have destroyed anyone weaker. But Naruto Uzumaki proved to be strong. While staying overnight inside a temple as a guest of the warrior monk Chiraku, it had taken his banishment to see that Konoha would never accept him, not matter what he had done. He had helped in defending Konoha from the joint Sand Sound invasion, which was spearheaded by Orochimaru, and even brought back the slug sage so she could take over the post of Hokage. In the end, the dream of being Hokage was just as that, a dream. In an ironic twist, Naruto realized that Konoha was holding him back from reaching his true potential, as what Sasuke had said to him before their battle at the Valley of the End. Everyone saw Naruto as a dead last with no clan. But that was merely a mask. Naruto simply hid under the guise of a knuckle-headed ninja in order to keep the villagers at bay, and for good reason. Had he dropped his mask and showed that he could outdo even Sasuke Uchiha, the villagers would scream that it was the fox instead of accepting the fact that it was just hard work, and out comes the torches and pitchforks. Suspecting that the Warhawk would send his root forces after him, Naruto decided to head east towards Lightning Country while sending a clone towards Wind Country after leaving Chiraku. Add the fact that the Akatsuki had caught wind of his banishment, Itachi Uchiha and his partner Kisame Hoshigaki were hot on his tail. Thankfully, the root Anbu proved to be excellent fodder as Naruto gave both parties the slip as they fought each other. It was while trying to catch his breath in Kumo that he ran into his first ally. Yugito ni Jinchuriki of the Nibi, the two-tailed monster cat. Pursued by Akatsuki members Hidan and Kazuku in Kumo's sewers, Yugito would have surely lost had it not been for Naruto and several shadow clones littered with exploding tags which had separated both her and the Akatsuki pursuing her. As it turned out, Yugito had been sold out by the Kumogakure Council without knowledge by either the Raikage and his brother in an attempt to keep the self-proclaimed zombie brothers from destroying Kumo. Disillusioned and betrayed, Yugito decided to join up with Naruto. Several days later, after arriving in Wave Country, Naruto received another surprise while staying overnight with Tazuma and his family. The Forbidden Scroll of Sealing, as well as his heritage. To say that Naruto was shocked was an understatement. It also reinforced his hatred towards Konoha, since they had banished the only son of Minato Namikaze, the village hero and former Whirlpool ruler and seal master Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, nicknamed the Crimson Fury, and the hot-blooded habanero, for both her red hair and her trademark temper. His family was also loaded, as the accounts in Tea Country had proven. The Uzumaki clan was also related to the famed Senju clan, of which Tsunade was a part of. It was shortly thereafter that Naruto had adopted the family name of his father, thus becoming Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Since things were a bit hot for both Jinchuriki, Naruto and Yugito both boarded a boat from Tea Country and headed for the west. As long as anyone could remember, the northern and southern halves of the west, from the imposing Laja Mountains to the north to Tears Point to the south, were locked in a constant state of war. Power-hungry warlords and daimyos sought to control the lands by any means. Whenever two sides clashed, the fields ran red with blood. The weaker daimyos were either overrun or outright. Even worse, whenever a warlord was, another would take their place in the ensuing power vacuum. Naruto and Yugito were both in Kimen when he got into a fight with several of the local warlords' men. The five brutes were attempting to rape a helpless woman one night, as she had been caught outside of the mandatory curfew ordered by the warlord. The warlord, one Rokenbungi Oda, was the strongest of the warlords, as he had the most territory. Simply put, given the way he had ruthlessly oppressed the people in his territory, he made Gato look like a saint. Knowing full well that Oda would soon come for him, since he hated his men, Naruto took the fight to him. Naruto, along with Yugito and a number of shadow clones, invaded Oda's castle. Complacent in his superiority, Oda had underestimated the former Konoha genin and had paid for it with his life. With Oda dead by his hand, Naruto had gained an ambition. The people were suffering, civilian, ninja and samurai alike. With Oda's death, Naruto had also gained his land, which consisted of the soon-to-be imperial capital and all of the Kinkri region. After consulting Yugito and the Kyuubi about it, Naruto decided on a course of action: unify the lands and bring peace to the people. He had spent the first 3 months consolidating his power base in Kumon, which would soon become the capital of the Western Empire. Samurai and ninja flocked to his side in droves as Naruto lured them in with both his fighting prowess and his charismatic personality, promising them peace for the first time since the era of the Six Paths Sage. With that, the unification war had begun. The more ruthless daimyos and warlords who opposed Naruto's peace efforts challenged the underdog of a warlord, and were slaughtered to the last man. However, those who believed that Naruto could bring peace to the West came to his side, swearing loyalty to the young warlord. Soon, his army grew, consisting of samurai and shinobi alike. Much to his surprise, Zabuza Mamachi and Haku, thought to have been during the Wave mission, were in fact alive. His base of operations was in the forests of the southern continent. Zabuza was leading his own army consisting of mist refugees who fled during the bloodline purges, and upon finding out that the newest warlord was the same one he encountered years earlier back in Wave, pledged his support. Like his parents, Naruto was an expert in the Uzumaki style of Funijutsu, as well as the Uzumaki and Namikaze styles of combat. Also, aside from Yugito, Naruto had the 9 tails to rely upon. Originally, the Kyuubi no Yuko looked down on the son of Minato Namikaze with contempt, but after seeing how hard he worked and his devotion to his friends, the fox grew to respect him, which was ironic since aside from Yugito, the 9 tails was the one he could trust with his life. Proving to be a prodigy in the sealing arts, Naruto researched the seal which kept the 9 tails imprisoned in his gut. It was shortly after his 14th birthday that he freed her from its prison, complete with all 9 tails of power. That's right, the most powerful of the tailed beasts was a vixen. The 9 tails, whose name was Katami, could have left Naruto and gone after Madara Uchiha, the one person who was directly responsible for the deaths of Naruto's parents, as well as sending her into a rage and attacking Konoha, but she was quite fond of the boy, and remained at his side, teaching him anything and everything about advanced combat, jutsus and life in general, even long before Naruto had freed her from the seal, Naruto taking to her teachings like a sponge to water. Aside from being trained by the Kyuubi, Naruto also learned swordsmanship from Zabuza. He also became interested in samurai swordplay and soon learned from them as well from a master samurai by the name of Sanshi, training with him as well as learning all and everything political, while he wasn't out on campaign. Naruto's major support base, however, would come from the people themselves. Naruto was finally seen for something other than being a Jinchuriki, and that was a hero. It took him 1 year to unify the northern continent, and another year to unify the southern continent under his banner. The final battle took place on the southern continent, if one would call it that. The opposing daimyos had surrendered once their armies had deserted in the face of the young warlord. With the Treaty of Ichiyama, the unification war was officially over. Peace had finally been brought to the lands at last. It was 3 days after the war was over that Naruto was resting inside his home, formerly that of Rokenbungi Oda, when he was approached by the leading civilians, nobility and clans from both shinobi and samurai. He had brought peace to the West, and now the people looked to him for further leadership. Naruto offered token resistance to the idea, but it was Katami who had talked him into it. You may not be Hokage, but the people look to you. Besides, You are even more powerful than your father and the last 3 Hokages combined. Why be a cage when you can become an emperor? With that, Naruto had ascended from being a warlord to the emperor. Thus, the unified West, or the Western Empire, was born. Katami was his chief prime minister, while Zabuza and Yugito retained their commands of their own elite units. Sanshi also served as part of his council. That was 4 years ago. Naruto kicked off the crimson covers and swung his feet over the edge of the bed before rising to his feet, wearing only a pair of pajamas, pants and a sleeveless shirt. He stretched, which was followed by several morning calisthenics to work out the kinks in his muscles. As he stretched, he felt a pair of eyes on him, but he continued his calisthenics. He may have been the emperor, but he was above all things, a warrior. When he was finished, his wife made her move. He didn't even hear her move when she got out of the bed. But he did feel her arms around his waist, her body pressed up against his. While she was still holding her, Naruto turned around and looked down at his wife. She was taller than she was back when they were both Konoha genin, standing at 5 feet 7, several months younger than he was. Long indigo-colored hair reached down her back, her pupil-less lavender eyes looking up at her husband with love and tenderness. Her night clothes consisted of a tank top and a pair of cotton shorts. She was his confidant, his biggest supporter. She was also the Empress consort, faithful wife to the Emperor. Good morning, Harem, Naruto greeted his wife, using his nickname for her as he kissed her on the forehead. Good morning, love, Hinata Namikaze greeted back. It would be 6 years following his banishment from Konoha that they would meet up again, this time in Suna, where the Chunin exams were taking place. Naruto was present as the personal guest to the cage, Gaara of the Sand, given as how Gaara had requested that he train the 3 Suna genin Maru Sarutobi, formerly Konohamaru, Moegi and Udon for the upcoming trials. Dressed incognito, which earned him the nickname, the Man in Black, he saw Hinata having a falling out with her former teammate Kiba Inuzuka and Naruto's former teammate Sakura Haruno, because of Hinata's support towards Naruto. Using one of the courier ninjas assigned to the Imperial Consulate, he summoned Hinata. There, Naruto found out that not only Hinata was shunned by nearly everyone in Konoha because of her support for Naruto, save for Kurenai and Tsunade, but was also placed into the Hyuga branch clan after her father branded her with the caged bird seal. The caged bird seal, thought to be permanent, was easily removed by Naruto. Then Hinata received another shock. The man she loved was the one who had unified the West. He was the Emperor. Free from both the seal and from her father's browbeating, Naruto allowed Hinata to remain at the Imperial Consulate until the conclusion of the Chunin course. When Hiashi received Hinata's Hittite following the exams, he was livid. Hanabi, being the perfect little heiress, authorized a bounty on Hinata's head. Much Tsunade's dismay, Hinata was placed inside the bingo book as a ranked criminal with the order to retrieve on sight. Hiashi was not going to let anyone Hinata, for he would do that himself. Unknown to Hiashi, Hinata had left with Naruto and his entourage following the conclusion of the Chunin exams. The next time he would see her, the result of that meeting would not be pretty. As Hinata and Naruto had grown closer, Hinata was chosen by Katami to become the 3rd Fox Sage. Technically, only those in the Uzumaki clan were chosen, but since Naruto himself was an Uzumaki on his mother's side and his marriage to Hinata was a foregone conclusion, Katami chose Hinata. It would prove to be a wise decision. Katami saw that Hinata had potential and the drive to surpass even the first 2 sages. Even more surprising was the fact that her self-confidence and self-worth had increased. Even though she was not a seal master like her husband, Hinata made up for it by being an expert healer and fighter, her tactical prowess second only to her husband's. Following the completion of her 6-month training, Hinata was officially declared the 3rd Fox Sage. About a month later, she would marry Naruto in a private ceremony. There, she was given a new title, Empress Consort. Unlike most rulers, Hinata's authority was second to her husband's own. She was also quite popular with both the empire's nobility, its armed forces, and with the common people. A former princess forsaken by her family because of the love she had for her husband, long before he became the emperor. It also cemented the dynasty of the Uzumaki Namikaze rulers. "You okay?" Hinata asked. "Bad dream," was the reply. "Was it Konoha?" Hinata asked, knowing full well that today marked Naruto's banishment from the leaf. Naruto nodded. 8 years. Do you have any regrets? Now that I think about it, no. Konoha was holding me back. Naruto paused. Great. I sound like Sasuke back when we fought at the valley. The Empress consort giggled as she stole a kiss from her brooding husband and untangled herself from his embrace. Come on, Lord Namikaze. We have to get ready for the day. She didn't get very far, as Naruto grabbed her wrist gently and pulled her back to him. The Empire can wait, Harem. We'll head out in 30 minutes. Hinata smiled. She still held that smile as she reversed the grip and tossed her husband onto the bed. Before the Emperor could recover, the fox sage pounced on him. 30 minutes later, following the impromptu makeout session, the Emperor and his consort showered together, as they had always did. Afterward, they emerged from the bathroom and got dressed. One thing about Naruto was that his style of clothing has changed. He had grown out of wearing orange, switching over from the color which screamed, "Kill me," to mostly dark attire. After all, black was a universal color, and could just as easily go with anything. He walked into his closet and pulled out his clothes for the day, consisting of a white shirt with a tight collar, black vest, pants and boots. His longcoat remained on the hanger, while his black cage-style hat was still on the dresser. The hat was mostly used to conceal his identity, mostly when he traveled abroad, which was often. Hinata also followed her husband's example. Despite having a passion for Chisogam dresses, she too dressed simply. Her uniform consisted of a ninja jumpsuit, i.e., her Shippuden uniform, and a black Junin flak vest. The conical straw hat, which Hinata wore for the same reasons as her husband's cage-style hat, was on the counter as well. Naruto rolled up the sleeves of his shirt to his elbows. The last thing he slipped on were a pair of black leather gloves. Once everything was in place, they exited the bedroom via Shunshin, ending up on the grounds of the Imperial Complex. The sun has just risen over the city of Kimen, which was just as big as Konoha, only that it sat 20 miles inland from the Western Sea. The Kimen River, which its way halfway through the northern continent, came to an end at its namesake city. The imperial capital also served as a hub for trade, as did South Ichiyama in the southern region. Their residence, the imperial complex, was the nerve center of the empire, think the imperial palace in Japan. Located at the heart of Kumon City, which served as the imperial capital, the 2-mile complex sat on top of a small hill and was heavily fortified, as it once belonged to Rokenbungi Oda. Now, it served as the center of the unified West. Spanning 2 miles, the 4-story imperial palace, which served as the residence of the emperor. The top 2 floors were reserved for the emperor, while the bottom 2 floors were for their guests. Aside from the imperial palace was the Hall of Sovereigns, of which the emperor, the empress and their 12-member imperial council, 6 from the empire's high-ranking samurai and shinobi clans and 6 civilians and nobility who were the elected representatives of the people, met 3 times a week to conduct and manage the government. The House of Sovereigns also contained his throne room, where the royal couple would usually receive their guests, seated on their thrones, as well as their joint office. Unlike the Konoha Council, in which the Hokage was more of a figurehead by the time Tsunade had assumed the mantle, Naruto held absolute power alongside Hinata. However, Naruto and Hinata were no tyrants, showing that they had learned their lessons well. The men and women that served on the council were not, yes, men, but people who had fought and bled alongside with Naruto in the Unification War, and he trusted and respected them a great deal, as the council did the same. The Imperial Ballroom was located in a wooded section of the park. At the moment, the servants busied themselves in preparing for the unification gala which was to be held by the end of the week, in which the emperor and empress would host what is the biggest event of the year. And at that time, the entire empire would be celebrating the peace and prosperity that their young emperor has brought them after years of non-stop war. Adjacent to the imperial palace was their private training hall, where he and Hinata would spar and meditate. Last was the set of barracks used by a regiment of ninja and samurai, also hidden in the wooded area of the complex, the ninja and samurai assigned to watch over the grounds of the complex. Arms linked, the royal couple strolled into the House of Sovereigns to start their day. The samurai that stood guard greeted their emperor, to which Naruto and Hinata responded with a nod. The chief advisor was waiting for them in the corridor. Slightly taller than the emperor, with tanned skin, muscular, bleached blonde hair and mustache, Naruto greeted him with a nod, and the man fell in step beside him and Hinata. "You're up early this morning, eh?" Naruto began. "And you jumped out the window again, Chief," replied dryly. Turning to Hinata, he greeted her as well. "Lady Namikaze." "Eh?" Hinata responded. "He did not jump out of the window this time. We came down by Shunshin. How did the wreckage of Kumo ended up in the west, and as Naruto's senior advisor? 3 years earlier, A was overthrown by a more hardline wreckage. The first order of the new wreckage: eliminate his predecessor and his brother, B. However, as Emperor of the West, Naruto had a robust spy network in the East, and it was through them that Naruto was notified of the coup while visiting Gaara in Suna. With the aid of his elite guard, his personal bodyguards and the use of the demons, Gate Jutsu, arrived at the nick of time and slaughtered the Kumo Anbu, thus saving A and B's lives. Imagine their shock upon returning to Suna that the emperor was the former Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Even A and B had heard about the exploits about the one who unified the lands under a single banner. It was then that Naruto offered A and B political asylum within the empire, along with the other 5 Jinchuriki that Naruto had rescued from the Akatsuki. A and B accepted Naruto's offer, with A serving as chief advisor to the young emperor, while B hung around the trading post of Rara, located 30 miles from Kumon. "Still a ninja, through and through," A remarked. "Haven't called myself that since I came here," Naruto replied. "Given the fact that I've also been trained by samurai, I'm more of a combination between the two." "So what's on the schedule for today?" "Not much, just a meeting with one of the daimyos from the southern region. Mukata, I think. Everyone is preparing for the festival at the end of the week." "What is it about?" "The Southern Badlands. I thought we covered that in the last meeting of the council." "That we did, Chief," A replied, "and so far, your financial aid has proven to be effective. I think that Daimyo Mukata wishes to offer the hand of his eldest daughter to you." At that, Hinata's eye twitched. Naruto was loyal to her, and despite her gentle demeanor, the idea of having to compete with either a concubine or a mistress was to her insulting. She made that perfectly clear when she became Empress Consort. Naruto was hers and hers alone. "In case you forgot, I'm married," Naruto said. "But in Mukata's case, he wants you to have a concubine. So in case his daughter's offspring could have a claim to the throne." Hinata cut in. "I think not. Whoa. Scary. A thought. Glad I wasn't in charge when that mess with the Hyuga went down." Naruto groaned. At least Lady Ahara wasn't as persistent. She did back off when Hinata and I got married. I don't chase skirts or fangirls. I'm strictly a one-woman man. "How admirable of you," A said. In the 3 years that he has been here, his respect towards the boy has grown. Here was someone that everyone has written off as worthless, a dead last who was banished from his home for simply doing his job, the ruler of an empire. When Naruto had told him and B the circumstances of his banishment, both men were shocked. The boy was banished solely for doing his job. Even more so, was the fact that the boy they banished was the son of the village hero, a man that both brothers respected. What was more surprising to A and his brother was that he had managed to rally the other Jinchuriki to his cause. With the exception of the bloodthirsty Yagura, who was dead, and Gaara, who was still Suna's cage, the surviving Jinchuriki had made their homes throughout the empire, and the people saw them as guardians, heroes, not as weapons or demons. The 6 Jinchuriki were also instrumental in defending Suna from the Akatsuki, who had invaded the sand. It was indeed a brutal battle. The Akatsuki was backed up by the 5 Paths of Pain and 100,000 white Zetsu clones. The joint Imperial Suna forces consisted of Zabuza Mamachi's Demon Brigade, Yugito Ni's Hellcat unit, former Akatsuki members Yahiko and Konan, who had defected from the Akatsuki upon being betrayed by their childhood friend Nagato, 20,000 ninja and samurai from the Imperial forces, and the 6 Jinchuriki which Naruto had rescued. Despite having superior numbers, the Akatsuki lacked the power of the Jinchuriki. In the end, the Akatsuki were routed and destroyed. It was during the Akatsuki invasion that Naruto had earned another nickname, the Akatsukir. Both Itachi Uchiha and Nagato had fallen to his blade. Hinata was credited with being of Deidara. One chakra-powered chitin shot from her Yumi bow had struck his pouch of clay, detonating it-ing him almost instantly. You call it admirable, Naruto replied, but Mukata is as sneaky as they come. Reminds me of the so-called Honorable Council from Konoha. Always looking out for their own interests, yet claim that it's for the good of the village. Your Majesty. Naruto, Hinata Anna stopped in mid-step and turned around. A valet was running down the hall in their direction. The valet skidded to a halt, and bended down to his knees, panting, taking in gulps of air. Catch your breath, son, A said. What business you have with the Emperor? There's someone here asking for you, the valet replied once he got himself under control. He wishes to speak with you, sir. Tell them whoever it is I will speak with him shortly, Naruto replied. He says it's urgent, sire. Naruto sighed. Okay. Who is he and where is he from? He did not give me his name, Majesty, the valet replied, but he did say he was from the east. Fire country. If Naruto was surprised, he did not show it. However, A and Hinata exchanged worried glances. Where is he now? I told him to wait inside the throne room, sir, the valet replied. You may go, the emperor said. Once the valet was gone, a turn to the younger man. Fire country. You think it's Konoha? Could be, Naruto replied. If you want, I can have whoever it is thrown out, A suggested. No. This was going to happen sooner or later, Naruto replied. You think that after sending out most of the Konoha 11, the Warhawk, and the clan heads after me that they would finally get the hint and leave me alone. Deal with Mukata, and tell him that 1. I had an emergency to deal with, and 2. My answer to his impending proposal is no. A nodded and walked down the corridor. Naruto, in the meantime, headed for the throne room, located inside the hall. Hinata followed him. On the outside, he was the perfect picture of calm. Inside, he was angry. Konoha. Today marked the 8th anniversary of his banishment from the Leaf, and someone had the nerve to waltz into his home. Depending on who it was, he may have them imprisoned. If it was that meddling Warhawk and his 2 buddies on the council, execution looked mighty attractive. The throne room was guarded by 2 armored samurai, each armed with a naginata, as well as a sword strapped to the side. The men saluted their emperor, who responded with a nod, as one of them opened the door to the throne room. Hinata remained behind. Doubling as a reception hall, the throne room was simply designed, as per to Naruto's orders. The emperor was not a worldly man, as his life in Konoha had proved that. The throne room was simple, yet regal, and it showed off his power. The throne room was half the size of the Konoha council chambers, breathtakingly beautiful and very restrained. Think the throne room from The Last Samurai. A red carpet led from the door to the throne itself, which was raised on a small platform. The twin thrones themselves was of an intricate design, made from the finest cedar from the southern continent combined with red velvet from the northern continent. It looked like any other chairs from the empire, but it was anything but. It was a throne fit for the emperor and his consort. And Naruto saw him, seated on the steps leading to the thrones. Pausing only to cast a seal which soundproofed the room, Naruto faced the one person he hasn't seen in 8 long years. A man standing at his height, with spiky white hair, with a horned forehead protector with the kanji, oil, carved into it, and dressed in a short green kimono and pants combination, the mesh shirt visible underneath. Over the green kimono was a red sage robe, open. His face had red markings under his eyes and a giant scroll was slung over his back. I'm waiting for an answer. What the hell are you doing here, Jiraiya? Naruto demanded, arms folded. Jiraiya winced. He had expected Naruto to call him pervy sage. Then again, in Naruto's eyes, he was one of many who did not stand up for him when the banishment order came down, as he was absent at the time. Look, kid, I just came here to explain why I did what I did. As Jiraiya would soon find out, that was the wrong thing to say, as he was cut off by a yellow flash of light, and a gloved hand from his pissed-off godson clamped down on his throat. Naruto had mastered the Hiroshin. Unfortunately, Jiraiya was on the receiving end. Explain. Explain. Naruto bellowed. Explain why I should not snap your neck, old man. At least give me one good reason why I should not send you back to Konoha in pieces. As he tried to yank Naruto's hand from his throat, Jiraiya watched as Naruto's eye color shifted from a vibrant cerulean to the color of pure gold. Normally when Naruto went fox on his opponents, the eyes would go red with slitted pupils. Here, the pupils remained normal. But there was still the matter of surviving the wrath of his estranged godson, who was at the moment, trying to strangle him to death. It took the perverted sage a moment to realize that Naruto has lifted him clean off the floor. Explain to me why you would rather work on that smut you call novels instead of showing up in my life. The emperor snarled. Why you abandoned me like the rest of that damned village? Why you didn't tell me who my parents were? Or why you have the nerve to waltz into my country and my home uninvited? I'm sorry. Jiraiya managed to croak out. Please don't kill him. Jiraiya's eyes were starting to roll into the back of his head, his skin starting to turn purple. Seeing that having a dead body on his hands would be bad even for the emperor, Naruto released him. The toad sage fell to a heap at the emperor's feet, gulping down mass quantities of air. Despite his near-death experience at the hands of his estranged godson, Jiraiya felt he deserved it, for abandoning his godson in the aftermath of the Sasuke retrieval mission. Chakra-induced strength, Jiraiya said as he rubbed his neck. Tsunade would have been proud. Naruto ignored the comment. He walked past the hacking man and took a seat upon his throne. How did you find me? He asked, still angry, but not angry enough to show the older man what his insides looked like, his eyes still golden. Jiraiya shakily rose to his feet. You were last seen heading towards Wave Country from Cloud, after being seen leaving with the two tails. Never thought that you would end up here. You're also well known back east as the one who unified the West since era of the Six Paths, he explained. Since everyone here knows who you are, it was pretty easy to track you down. You still haven't answered my first question. Without saying that you wanted to see how your godson is doing, what are you doing here? Jiraiya flinched when Naruto pronounced, godson, with sarcasm. Minato and Kushina would skin him alive if they were still living if they had found out what their son had went through. Then again, open hostility from the former Konoha genin was something to be expected. I screwed up big time, Jiraiya began. I can honestly admit that now. For not being there for you when you were growing up and when you were banished, I am truly sorry. I see Minato in you, and because of that, part of me did blame you for his death. That was the main reason behind why I stood aside when the orders came down to retrieve the Uchiha. When I heard that you were banished, I decided to do the right thing for once. The Forbidden Scroll and your heritage, that was my doing. Ironically, the Forbidden Scroll once belonged to your father. Naruto's eyes widened in realization. It was Jiraiya who had tracked him down outside Wave while staying overnight with Tazuma and his family and had delivered both the scroll and his heritage. Flashback. Wave Country, 7 years earlier. Tracking down Naruto was easy enough. He was friends with the bridge builder, who was more than willing to offer the banished ninja a place to stay for the night, before leaving the following morning. Sneaking in was easy enough, an open window inside Inari's bedroom, where the bridge builder's grandson and his godson were both fast asleep. Jiraiya simply stood there, watching Naruto sleep. Ever since hearing about the banishment upon returning to Konoha to report on the Akatsuki, he was disgusted at not only Tsunade for not trying any harder to stop the council, but at the council, both shinobi and civilian, who had decided to kiss the Uchiha-san banish him for being the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. He was even furious at the majority of his godson's former teammates, especially the pink-haired Banshee, who kept calling for his death, and that scarecrow of a sensei, who devoted more time in training Sasuke than the other two. More importantly, he was disgusted with himself for not being there when the order came down to retrieve Uchiha. He saw the looks of disgust on Naruto's teammates when Tsunade had told them about the burden he carried. It was after he had retrieved both Naruto's legacy and the Forbidden Scroll that he vowed that not only that as long as Naruto was banished, then he nor his spy network would not serve the Leaf. After coming into contact with the Princess of Spring, who was shooting a movie in the Fire Capital, she was more than willing to offer him and his network political asylum once she found out about Naruto's banishment. Since leaving Konoha, Naruto was dogged by a squad of Root Anbu, as well as Hunter Ninja. Even Itachi Uchiha and his partner Kisame Hoshigaki increased their efforts in trying to capture the Jinchuriki. But he was not known as the unpredictable knuckle-headed ninja for nothing, as he had used his shadow clones to keep his pursuers occupied. It was only through sheer dumb luck that Jiraiya had came across Naruto's location. For a moment, Jiraiya stood silent. Then he reached behind his back and retrieved the Forbidden Scroll of Sealing, as well as a smaller scroll, containing not only Naruto's birth certificate, but also the bank accounts of the Namikaze family fortune, located in Tea Country, and placed it at the foot of Naruto's bed. The blonde ninja remained sleeping. His task done, Jiraiya left the same way he came. You got a lot of nerve showing you face here, Toad Sage. Jiraiya stopped in mid-step and turned around, finding himself face to face with Yugito Ni. Kunais in her hands, the former Kumo Kunoichi, Ikibi Jinchuriki, was ready to attack. I'm not here to fight, Jiraiya said as Yugito advanced on him. The old hermit then recognized her. She was not dressed like a Kunoichi, but there was her chakra signature. You're Yugito Ni, of Kumo. Jinchuriki to the Nibi, the two-tailed monster cat. I'm no longer with the cloud, Yugito replied, stopping in mid-step. Without the knowledge of both A and B, the council decided to sell me out to the Akatsuki. If it wasn't for the kid, I would have been captured, or worse. He told me everything. The Gaki and I are both Nukenin without a home. And because I owe him my life, I and the Two Tails will protect him from all threats. At least I know that he's safe, Jiraiya said. I just dropped by to deliver his legacy and inheritance. You mean he doesn't know that he is the son of the Yellow Flash of Konoha? Off Jiraiya's surprised expression, Yugito continued. It's pretty damn obvious since he looks like his old man. Namikaze's a legend, given how he wiped out most of Iwa's ninja forces with the Hirishin. Don't worry, I'll let him find out on his own. In the morning, we'll be gone. Probably for the best, Jiraiya said. The kid probably hates me for not backing him up. For his sake, tell him that you didn't see me. End flashback. Seeing as how he held the young emperor's attention, Jiraiya continued with his explanation. I knew you would hate me, so I did not come and see you when you were banished. That and Minato and Kushina would me for not being there for you, so I did the next best thing. Following your banishment, Konoha tried to send Hunter Ninja and Anbu after you, as well as placing you in the bingo book as a S-class missing nin, but fortunately, your old man had friends in high places. Naruto could only guess. My father knew the fire daimyo. Jiraiya nodded. Your father rescued the daimyo's daughters during the last shinobi war when they were kidnapped by Iwa ninja. When I told him everything that has happened to you, the fire daimyo decided to intervene on your behalf. I was there in disguise as one of the daimyo's guards when he went to Konoha to personally end the attempts on your life. Believe me when I say that the council was pissed. Flashback. Konohagakure no Sato, 7 years earlier. The Uchiha will not face criminal charges, as he was under the influence of the cursed seal, Koharu Udatain was saying to the council. Tsunade Senju was not pleased. That does not mean that he will be punished for his attempted defection, the Godime intoned. He will be placed under house arrest until I see fit that he will return to active duty, and will remain a genin for the next 3 years. Furthermore, Cell 7 is immediately dissolved. Captain Hataki has shown that he is not capable of leading a team of genin due to his blatant favoritism and will be placed back inside the Anbu. Haruno will be reassigned to another cell. The civilian side of the council had no problem in agreeing with Tsunade's request. They were in a good mood, as they had finally gotten rid of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, circumventing around Tsunade's authority in order to do so. Even more better was the fact that the majority of the Konoha 11 saw him as the Fox Reborn, meaning that it would be easy to get them to the container the next time they see him. Homura Mitokado then spoke next. Our next order of business is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki himself. I propose that he will be placed in the bingo book as AS-ranked missing ninja with orders to on-site. Turning to Tsunade, he cut her off, noting the furious expression on her face, his tone slightly smug. The boy is a danger. Who know what he will do? He is unpredictable, and now that he has been banished, he could take his revenge on Konoha. Turning to the council, he said, all those in favor of placing Naruto Uzumaki in the bingo book as AS-ranked missing ninja. Before a vote could be taken, the chamber's doors opened and the daimyo's personal guards stepped inside, ready to execute their lord's will. Hiyashi Hyuga was on his feet. This is a private meeting. He barked. You dare interrupt this honorable council? I dare, Hyuga, the fire daimyo intoned as he stepped inside, causing the Hyuga clan head to do a very uncharacteristic eep at his arrival. The old man's face showed genuine discontent of the council who had orchestrated the banishment of Minato's son, and the Hokage, who was helpless to stop them. The council and Tsunade bowed in respect of the ruler of Fire Country. Lord Daimyo, to what we owe the honor of your visit today? Homura asked. The daimyo looked around before he began to speak. I have received word from a very creditable source that this so-called honorable council are attempting to place a boy in the bingo book for the sole reason of being the Jinchuriki to the 9 tails, he deadpanned. At that sentence, the council chamber went silent. Their scheme was finally exposed. The daimyo caught the looks on the council's faces. So, it is true. Hiyashi was the first to quickly reply to the daimyo's accusation. My lord, while that alone is a valid reason, it is not the main reason, he stated. The daimyo turned to Hiyashi. Do you think I am stupid, Hyuga? He asked in a ice-cold tone. Please, tell me. Wisely, Hiyashi kept his mouth shut, since he wanted to keep his head. Coming from you, Hyuga, I am most surprised to see that you of all people defending the Uchiha, given the bad blood between your clan and the Uchiha. I'm willing to bet you were very happy when most of them were slaughtered. I have seen the mission parameters for the Uchiha retrieval mission, and you banished the boy solely for doing his job. If anything, the Uchiha should be banished, if not executed outright, for his attempted defection from the Leaf, as well as nearly causing the deaths of his teammates, as well as the visiting envoy from Suna who was also sent along for the mission. One of the civilians rose up in protest. Tsunade recognized her as Asuna Haruno, Sakura's mother and the leader of the Konoha Mercantile Guild. My lord, he is the last of the Uchiha clan. He is needed here. Advisor Udatain verified it herself. The Uchiha was under the influence of the cursed seal. No. You value only the Uchiha's Sharingan to the point that this pathetic council will banish an innocent boy for something that was not in his control, the daimyo shot back, causing the council member to sit back down in fright. And concerning Udatain's claim, it's a bunch of crap. Udatain is not a seal master. That is just an excuse. The Uchiha left the village of his own accord, and you were more than willing to sacrifice your own ninja to bring him back. But back to the matter at hand. You banished the Uzumaki boy on trumped-up charges for using excessive force, yet he was more injured than the Uchiha. And now, you wish to place him in the bingo book solely because he is the jailer of the Nine Tails. He began to count off on his fingers. 1. You had overrode the authority of your Hokage to have him banished, ergo you cannot label him as a missing ninja. 2. I see no reason to have him placed in the book, nor send Hunter Ninja after him, since he is not a criminal. The third reason is strictly political. Off their confused looks, the daimyo decided to explain. My counterpart in Wind Country spoke highly of the Uzumaki boy, as he had helped the Suna Jinchuriki, and also saw that he was wrong in cutting their military aid. The Princess of Spring Country, as well as the unified people of Wave Country, also hold the boy in high regards for his actions, as does countless others. My own influence will decrease should he is placed in the bingo book. The council knew what was coming. Danzo rose from his seat. My lord, please, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki is a threat to the leaf. He must be dealt with while we have the chance. The daimyo cut him off with a glare. If I remember correctly, Shimura, you do not dictate what I should do. I am the Lord of Fire Country. Not you. Are we clear? Yes, sir, Danzo grated as he slid back into his seat. Even the Warhawk knew better than to go against the Fire Lord. The Fire Daimyo then made his judgment. While I cannot reverse the banishment orders, I can issue the following edict. Naruto Uzumaki will not be placed in the bingo book, nor will you continue to send Hunter Ninja after him. This is my final word on this matter. If I find out that he is placed inside or you continue to send your Anbu after him, not only will I have the entire Konoha Council, civilian and shinobi, executed for high treason against Fire Country, but Sasuke Uchiha will be executed as well. Any protests the council was planning on making instantly died in their mouths. They knew that the Fire Daimyo was serious. Dead serious. Seeing as the council was willed into submission, the daimyo nodded. Glad you decided to see things my way. As of this moment, the matter regarding Uzumaki is closed. End flashback. Jiraiya had finished his tale to Naruto, who stood there in silence. After a moment, Naruto nodded in respect towards the older man. I'm still angry over your actions, Jiraiya, but I will still give you credit where it's due. Thank you for giving me my heritage and protecting me against that damned council. Jiraiya beamed. Maybe things between Naruto and himself could be mended after all. Tsunade was against the banishment in general. But her hands were tied, as the decision from both shinobi and civilian was all but unanimous. She fought tooth and nail for you, kid, but it was not enough. The council had originally planned on executing you, but Tsunade overruled them. Lot of good that would have done, Naruto snorted. If I had died, the furball would have been released and free to go to town. Dad may have been good with the seal, but even he forgot that one little detail. She should have done more, instead of caving into the council's demands of banishing me and kissing Uchihas. Jiraiya saw that Naruto's eyes had turned back to normal. What's with your eyes? It's my bloodline, Naruto explained. A gift from you-know-who. The fox gave that to you. The emperor nodded. I call it fox eye. Raising one hand, Naruto produced a Rasengan, while at the same time, activating his bloodline. Then he pumped his wind-based chakra into the technique, causing the ball of chakra to shift into the shape of a Fuma Shuriken. The fox eye basically allows me to unleash senjutsu-level attacks. Given my enormous chakra reserves, it is indeed a formidable bloodline. Its power could rival even the Rinnegan and the Eternal Magankyu Sharingan. Before I got the fox eye, it would normally take 2 clones to help me with the Rasen Shuriken. Now, I can do this with no problem. The former Konoha ninja banished the jutsu and returned his eyes to normal. Of course, the fox eye also has several benefits as well. Seeing as how I am a seal master like Dad, it increases the effectiveness of my seals 100-fold. Came in pretty handy when I dealt with Hidan and Kazuku. Plus, it also makes me immune from genjutsu, including the Magenkyu's Tsukiyomi, and it nullifies the Sharingan's ability to copy any jutsu. Impressive, Jiraiya said. Naruto leaned back in his throne. Does Konoha know about me? He asked. Yes, and no. Yes, they know about your exploits and deeds, as the one who united the West. Fortunately, with the exception of Suna and Mist, your identity is unknown. I haven't been back in Konoha following your banishment. Daimyo Fujika's was nice enough to offer me asylum in spring after I explained everything to her. Yukie does have a kind heart. I can only imagine Konoha's reaction if they found out I was the emperor of the Western Empire, Naruto muttered. Especially Danzo. He's a sneaky little shit that has dug himself deep within the leaf. Then there's Iwa and Orochimaru. Actually, speaking of the snake, there is another reason why I decided to come here to speak with you, Jiraiya said. At the same time, in Konoha, the reports from the border patrols looked grim. Lightning and Earth had closed off its borders. Even worse, rumors were coming in that the Raikage had been overthrown and replaced with a more hardline Kage. And his brother, B, were missing. Even more worse, said Kage had slaughtered most of the Lightning Daimyo's family, with the exception of a select few, who managed to escape. And to top it off, Iwa has a brand new Tsuchikage, following the suspicious death of Oniki. But that was not the worst of the news that had dampened Tsunade Senju's day. The worst news was that Kumo and Iwa had formed an alliance with Orochimaru and his Sound Ninja. That meant only one thing. War was inevitable. At the moment, the Godime was in a meeting with the Konoha Council. Ever since that day 7 years ago, Tsunade had come to despise the council for what they had done. No one, from the shinobi clans to the civilians, stood up for Naruto. Even worse, when she revealed Naruto's burden as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki in an attempt to see the kind of hero he was, the Konoha 11, with the exception of Hinata, had turned their backs on him. She had notified the council of the recent events, and suffice to say, things looked grim for the Leaf. Against one of the major shinobi powers, they stood a chance of survival. But against two major shinobi powers who both have a grudge against Konoha and a rogue sage hell-bent on destroying the Leaf, the situation looked grim. Tsunade called for silence. It's apparent that this is going to be a 3-on-1 battle. If by some miracle we manage to survive, then it will take years for Konoha to rebuild its forces. What we need is another force involved. To everyone's surprise, Danzo Shimura nodded in agreement. Although I hate to admit it, Lady Hokage is right, the Warhawk Root Commander seconded. The Leaf needs another ally if we plan on surviving this war. I, for one, do not wish to see Konoha lost to the ages. Inoichi Yamanaka spoke next. The idea of an alliance sounds feasible, but who in the elemental nations would join us? Suna would be our number one choice, but they revoked the alliance when we banished the Uzumaki boy, and refused to have nothing to do with us. Following that, Spring, Snow, Iron, Tea, and Wave revoked their alliance and trade agreements with the Leaf, as well as with Fire Country. It is true that we no longer have to worry about the Nine Tails, but it is apparent that by banishing the boy, it did more harm to the Leaf than good. The council members begrudgingly had to agree. Following Naruto's banishment, Suna had sent an envoy demanding an explanation as to why Naruto was banished. The time was extremely bad on Konoha's part, as there was a citywide party celebrating Naruto's banishment in full swing. When the reason was given, i.e., Naruto's excessive force, during the Sasuke retrieval mission, along with being the Kyuubi's jailer, Suna had literally tore the alliance to shreds. Aside from that, Konohamaru Sarutobi, Asuma's nephew and Hiruzen's grandson, had abandoned Konoha, along with Moegi and Udon, and left for Suna with the envoy, the trio knowing full well of Naruto's burden as the Nine Tails, since Naruto himself had told them. That incident still haunts Asuma to this very day. By siding with the council solely on fear, he had effectively lost the remaining member of his family. His marriage to Kurenai and the birth of his daughter Hitomi helped somewhat, but he felt like he had failed his father. The next time Asuma would see him, Konohamaru would be participating in the Chunin exams in Suna. Following Suna terminating their alliance, the various trade agreements and alliances had fallen through. Wave had broken off trade agreements, as did Tea, Iron, and Spring, as well as numerous others. Even Jiraiya was on Naruto's side, as they had lost the use of his spy network. The search parties that Tsunade, and Danzo using his route, had sent out found nothing of the missing Toad Sage. Not to mention the Fire Daimyo, who had forbidden the council to place the former Jinchuriki into the bingo book, on threat of execution of both the entire council and that of Sasuke Uchiha. All attempts to rebuild Konoha's reputation had all been futile. When asked why the neighboring villages and countries had terminated their alliances and agreements, everyone's response was the same. They favored a ninja who was more than willing to betray his village for power and banished a ninja who was a hero. In layman's terms, Naruto wasn't to blame, but Sasuke Uchiha for his attempted defection from the Leaf. And having a village known for its chronic backstabbing part of any kind of alliance or agreement would be bad for business. In those 8 years, it was clear that the Leaf was now a mere shadow of its former glory. Wherever the Leaf went, they would receive a rather cold reception. In some cases, they were not welcome into some of the villages, as it had been evident when Suna hosted the Chunin exams. Inoichi is correct, Sum Inuzuka concurred. But the main problem is how can we forge an alliance when most of the villages despise us? That damned Kyuubi brat cost us every single alliance we had when we threw him out. Lucky for her, she didn't notice Tsunade's hand ball up into a fist. However, the Inuzuka matriarch felt a cold chill run down her spine as she felt murderous intent being directed at her. The feral clan head decided that it was best for her to shut up. What about the unified West? Everyone turned to the source of the voice. Seated on the shinobi side of the council, was the last active member of the now defunct Cell 7, Sasuke Uchiha. Following Naruto's banishment and Tsunade's revealing Naruto's secret, Sasuke was the diametric opposite of the rest of the ninja. Unlike his own childhood, Sasuke had grown to respect, albeit a bit grudgingly, the burden that Naruto had carried, not to mention the level of restraint that Naruto had. Even he saw that he was not the Nine Tails Reborn, and with that kind of power, he could easily destroy Konoha should he wish. He also blamed himself for being seduced by the promise of power from Orochimaru, which led to the events that ended with Naruto's banishment. Despite not being trusted for his attempted defection to Orochimaru, Sasuke had worked hard for his rank of Chunin, and later, Junin, and had gained a seat on the council, and as one of the chief advisors to Tsunade. To the shinobi side of the council, despite their obvious mistrust of the last Uchiha, the idea did show merit. They had heard about a young boy who had emerged in the West and had launched a war of unification, uniting the lands in less than 2 years and having been proclaimed the Emperor of the West. Suna is pretty friendly with the Empire, Sasuke continued. Aside from that, it's apparent that Suna has a military alliance with the Western Empire. Given that it had came to the Sans aid during the Akatsuki invasion, it is clear that the Empire has some pretty powerful warriors within their ranks, both shinobi and samurai. The Emperor himself is said to be a powerful warrior, trained in both the shinobi arts and the way of the samurai. From our past encounters with him, it's safe to say that he is highly skilled and incredibly strong, stronger than even the legendary sages themselves. Indeed, Danzo thought, that boy has proven to be stronger than my elite root. Were he a Konoha ninja, I would have made him into my right-hand man. He shows even more promise than the Uchiha. And his elite guard, if they are strong enough to decimate my root, then such a power could be extremely useful for Konoha. As to the rumors of the Emperor himself being a skilled and powerful warrior, several of the shinobi clan heads, higher-ranking Junin and special Junin can attest to that fact, albeit painfully. It had all started 2 years ago when Akatsuki members Hidan and Kazuku slaughtered the warrior monk Chiriku and his fellow monks inside their temple, the emperor himself, who was on an inspection tour of the Pakara merchant houses with the Shinzens and traveling incognito, personally intervened. Tracking down Hidan and Kazuku near an underground bounty station, the emperor brought Hidan's Jashin ritual and curse jutsu to a halt, thus saving Asuma's life. As Kazuku and Asuma watched in complete shock, the emperor nullified Hidan's immortality with a special set of seals, right before severing his head from his body, ing the foul-mouthed priest ninja. Then he turned his attention to Kazuku, destroying each of his hearts before severing his own head as well. To add insult to injury, he collected the bounties on both men. Moments later, the Inoshika Cho trio arrived. Assuming the worst, they attacked the man in black, only to be sledgehammered back. Their injuries were not fatal, but they would be out of action for a couple of days. Asuma, however, would be incapacitated for several months. But after Asuma had explained everything, it was clear that he owed the mystery man his life, and that he knew his old comrade in arms, which means that he was out simply to avenge Chiraku. Tsunade was not convinced, and with the council's backing, issued the following order: bring the man in black to Konoha for questioning. Following the Inoshika Cho's defeat, several more Konoha ninja would face the emperor, and fail. Danzo was the first to jump on those orders. He dispatched 20 of his root Anbu led by Sai to the Fire Sound border, where the man in black had paid for the burial of Chiraku and his fellow monks. Danzo himself tagged along, hoping to see his root take down the mystery man, as he was complacent in their superiority. At the ruins of Fire Temple, Danzo confronted the man in black, who was flanked by the Shinzens and his 6-man elite guard. The Warhawk delivered the ultimatum: come quietly or there will be trouble. The man in black was not amused, and gave the order to attack. In the ensuing battle, his elite guard took down half of the root Anbu, while the man in black himself was credited with talking out the remaining half, Sai included, leaving nothing but broken bodies in his wake. Danzo was shocked. The 20 men that accompanied him were the pick of the litter, and the mystery man and his entourage had taken them down without breaking a sweat. In desperation, he removed his bandages that covered his implanted Sharingan, only to find that his trump card had no effect, forcing the Warhawk to fight the man in black in a sword duel. 5 minutes later, Danzo himself joined his root in unconsciousness. In Spring Country, the first-generation Inoshika Cho trio confronted the mystery man while he was visiting the Spring Daimyo, actress Yukie Fujika's, and were soundly defeated, if not just as fast as their offspring. In Tea Country, it was Rock Lee, Neji Hyuga and Tenten, who had seen the man while one of his elite guards was competing in a martial arts tournament. Out of Team Guy, Tenten got off pretty light with several angry welts from when she was smacked repeatedly with the flat side of the man's katana. Rock Lee and the man would later fight in a taijutsu match, and despite Lee's best efforts, was also defeated. Neji would go on to fight him, sprouting that fate has deemed him the winner. You deserve praise for making it this far, Neji had said before their fight. But your luck ends here. As it is fate for me to be a member of the branch family of the Hyuga, fate has deemed me as the winner. I will defeat you and bring you back to Konoha. I never got this far by living my life bound to fate, the man in black replied. Fate and honor are designed for one thing. They are designed by weak people to keep the strong in line. There is no such thing as fate. There is only choice. The choice to do what is right. The choice to make your own destiny. You lie. No one can change their fate. There was one who said the same thing, but he turned out to be a demon in disguise. You will see soon enough. I will show you why I am considered the best in the Hyuga clan. The man in black had sighed. At first, I was just going to fight you. Now, I'm gonna kick your. In the ensuing battle, the emperor would send the Hyuga prodigy to the hospital along with his teammates, the Hyuga prodigy getting the worst of the beatdown. Hey, the man in black chuckled as Neji had lost consciousness. You claim to be the best, but you fell like the rest. Near the lightning border, Asuma Sarutobi, now recovered from his injuries, along with Shino and Shibi Aburame came across the man in black. Fortunately for them, they did not fight him, having decided to hide in the shadows as they watched the man in black fight both Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki. The two Akatsuki had been given new orders from Nagato, seeing as how Naruto has disappeared, retrieve the renegade Miss Jinchuriki Utakata. The three Konoha Junin watched as the man in black, supported by three of his elite guards, faced down the renegade Uchiha and his partner. Or rather, the man in black did. It was during this battle that the three had gotten some vital information about their opponent. 1. His sword had the ability to split in two. 2. It was more than a match for Kisami's Samahata. 3. Itachi's Magankyu Sharingan proved to be ineffective against the man in black. It also explained the reason why the Sharingan was not effective to Danzo. Nice try, Uchiha, the man in black had said. Your Mangenkyu is no match for my bloodline, if I can be so modest. Not only it increases the power of my jutsu and seals to rival the power of the legendary sages, it also makes me immune from all forms of genjutsu, including your dreaded Tsukiyomi. This can end in two ways. And in both of them, the Rokubi Jinchuriki comes with me. You make it sound like we have no choice, was Itachi's reply. You don't, the man in black replied as if he was asking the time. It's my way, or, screw it, it's my way. Itachi and Kisame then attacked. But since Samahata had to absorb chakra to be effective, it ended up draining Kisami's chakra, allowing him to be dispatched quickly. Then he fought Itachi. Asuma and the two Aburame saw that the man was merely toying with the fallen Uchiha, Itachi having been forced to fight since his trump card was ineffective. Then the man ended the battle by catching Itachi with chakra-absorbing chains. With both Itachi and his partner immobilized, the man in black made his retreat with his elite guards and his prize, but not before promising Itachi that the next time they meet, he will personally him. Deciding that discretion was the better part of valor, the three Junin retreated back to Konoha. The man was later seen in hot water country. Tsunade dispatched the Inuzuka matriarch and her son, along with Kakashi Hatake to bring the man in black in. This was the only time that the emperor has fought back so viciously. Both Sume and Kiba performed their beast mimicry, transforming Kuromaru and Akamaru into clones of themselves, while Kakashi summoned 5 shadow clones. The two Inuzuka and Kakashi found out the hard way that the man was very skilled in taijutsu. First, he disposed of Kuromaru and Akamaru in a specialized net created to drain chakra, before turning his attention to the three Junin. In the end, Kiba ended up with a broken nose and jaw. Sume also had a broken nose and a broken collarbone. But Kakashi had it the worst. 6 broken ribs, his jaw and nose broken, 1 ruptured eye socket, his right hand and leg broken, and the emperor's boot up his literally. The 3 ninja were found by a backup group of Anbu and had to be carried back to Konoha. Kakashi was unable to sit right for 3 weeks. With the Inuzukas and Kakashi down for the count, it was up to Anko Mitarashi, Maeda Gai and Hiyashi Hyuga. This time around, a 10-man squad of Anbu came along to assist. After the epic beatdown that the Inuzukas and Kakashi had endured, Tsunade wasn't leaving nothing to chance. The battle took place inside the ruins of the Whirlpool village in Wave Country. Only this time, the Emperor's elite guards were with him as the Emperor investigated the ruins. The first thing that the Snake Mistress, the Taijutsu Master and the Hyuga clan head found out was that the man was of noble blood, as his family was of the Whirlpool ruling family, something that Hiyashi could respect. The second was that despite having superior numbers, his elite guards had literally dismantled the Anbu that were sent in. Anko, Hiyashi and Gai would fall, thus adding to the mystery man's tally of defeated Konoha ninja. In desperation, the council had once again circumvented Tsunade's authority and reactivated Sasuke Uchiha to active duty. It was during the Chunin exams in Suna that Sasuke had faced off against the man in black, who was there as Gaara's guest. Despite being the Uchiha elite, Sasuke lost, but not before the man had revealed his identity to him. I am the sovereign ruler of the unified West, he had whispered. The maverick emperor, the crimson fury of the empire, the man had said right before knocking him out cold. Upon returning to Konoha, the battered Uchiha gave his report to the council. Naturally, the council did not believe him. Only when a visiting Pakara merchant had verified Sasuke's testimony, did Konoha backed off. The last thing they wanted was an irate emperor declaring war over a misunderstanding. A war which could easily lead to Konoha's destruction. The one thing Sasuke found strange about the emperor was the fact that he knew exactly how the Konoha ninja fought. He outsmarted both generations of the Ino Shika Cho trio, took apart Danzo and his root Anbu, countered the Hyuga's Jiyuken, outfought both Guy and Lee, brutally took down both the Inuzuka matriarch and her son, sent Kakashi to the hospital numerous broken bones and the inability not to sit straight for several weeks, left Anko with a concussion, and was able to defeat even himself in battle. Even more amazing was that he defeated Itachi and his partner, something that even he was unable to do. After talking it over with Shikamaru and his father, all three came to the same conclusion. The emperor was highly skilled in weapons combat, as well as ninjutsu and taijutsu. His fighting style was direct, professional, and in some cases, incredibly brutal, designed to maim or even, and his tactical prowess was flawless, meaning that the emperor could easily be a SS-rank criminal with an order to flee on sight should he was placed inside the bingo book. But the emperor was holding back in all of his fights. It showed that the emperor was courteous enough not to them, but showed that he was the wrong person to cross in a fight. Unknown to Sasuke, both Shikamaru and his father had suspected that the emperor could have spies in Fire Country, which explained how he was able to defeat them so easily. Or maybe the emperor himself was connected to Konoha in some way. Shikaku had ordered his son to keep silent on the matter, until they got some more proof concerning the man in black. Unfortunately, the Akatsuki did not get the memo. When the Akatsuki had invaded Suna 2 years earlier, the Western Empire came to Suna's aid. The battle lasted for only 3 hours, but in the end, the Akatsuki was routed and destroyed to the last man. The Jinchuriki that the emperor had retrieved had played a major part in the battle, not to mention that 2 of the founding members of the Akatsuki had fought on the emperor's side. Since the Akatsuki desired the power of the tailed beasts, the emperor simply gave it to them, in spades. Sasuke was among the 10 Konoha ninja along with Tsunade, Asuma, Kakashi and Ino that went to Suna to offer aid in an attempt to get back on their good side, only to find that the battle was over. Despite the fact that over half of Suna was left in ruins, all Akatsuki members, from Nagato, who had been corrupted, to Madara Uchiha himself, were. However, before throwing the Konoha ninja out, Sasuke was allowed to see the body of his brother, Itachi Uchiha. Sasuke was of mixed emotions when he saw the body of Itachi next to that of Madara. The murderer of the Uchiha clan was finally slain, but he was upset that he did not do the deed. Now, he truly was the last of the Uchiha. One memory stood out in particular. He saw the emperor, who was clad entirely in black, complete with a solid black cage's hat to conceal his face, walking alongside a shorter woman, her face concealed by a conical straw hat, and Gaara in his battle uniform. When Tsunade asked who the mystery man was, their escort, who just so happened to be a battered and bruised Konohamaru Sarutobi, now Maru Sarutobi and Asuna Chunin, simply said that he was the Western Emperor, the woman was his wife, and an ally to Suna. "I don't like it," Hiyashi Hyuga said. "Why the Empire? We know close to nothing about their military, let alone their resources or economy. What if the Emperor refuses? Or forces Konoha to serve him?" Everyone inside the council chambers knew that Hiyashi Hyuga was a proud man. Too proud. His distrust of the Emperor ran deep. The battle down at the Whirlpool ruins had all but knocked him off his glorified pedestal, leaving him even more colder and more bitter. He thought that just because he was the clan leader, that he could easily do what his nephew, a member of the branch family, couldn't. The flaw of your own power is arrogance, the Emperor had told him, right before punching the word jerk into his forehead. This was after when he explained to Anko the reason why Hinata was not out here was that she was still a weakling in his eyes. The only time Hiashi could leave the compound afterward was when he had his forehead covered. It took 3 weeks for the bruise to finally fade. Anko, despite her own injuries, always rubbed it in the face of the stoic Hyuga, that he was better off behind the desk instead of out in the field. But the biggest slap to the face up to date was during the Chunin exams in Suna. His daughter, Hanabi Hyuga, called the darling of the Hyuga clan, faced off against Maru Sarutobi. In a climatic battle not seen in many years, it was the Sandame's grandson who had defeated his daughter. It didn't help that Sarutobi had used her arrogance against her, or that he was able to steal his grandfather's summoning contract before he had left for Suna. It was later revealed that Sarutobi and his 2 friends were personally trained by the emperor himself, at the Kazakuji's request. Hiashi was incensed at this loss of face. Second, was the fact that Hinata had defected from Konoha following the conclusion of the Chunin exams. Upon returning to Konoha, he had received Hinata's Hitai-8 and a message from the courier ninja. Hinata has defected from both Konoha and the Leaf. Hanabi capitalized on this by convincing the Hyuga elders to place a bounty on her head. Hinata was also placed inside the bingo book as AA-ranked missing ninja. It would be a year later before Hinata would resurface. When she did, she was with the Empire. In Hot Water Country, Neji and Hanabi Hyuga would encounter her after she had beaten 10 of the Hyuga main branch ninja. Hiashi remembered that incident all too well. Those 10 main branch members were the ones who had ridiculed Hinata and harassed Hinata when she was given the caged bird seal and shoved into the cadet branch. When Neji and Hanabi found them, not only did Hinata had beaten them, but she had also branded the most senior member with the caged bird seal in retaliation. Said Hyuga had chosen to commit suicide rather than to live with the disgrace. Hours later, Neji and Hanabi encountered the former heiress. Assuming that against Hinata, Neji and Hanabi had an easy win. But Hinata knew the Jiyukin style better than anyone. In fact, in her absence, Hiashi would later find out that she had purged it of all its flaws and weaknesses, and proceeded to beat down Hanabi, while unleashing the 128 palms on Neji as a measure of payback from the Chunin exams. She then had Hanabi deliver a challenge to her ex-father. Hiashi accepted. The battle had taken place in Wave Country. Hiashi was certain as Hyuga clan head, that he would win. He was wrong. His encounter with his missing daughter had left him even more bitter, and crippled. He had severely underestimated Hinata, and paid for it. The one person who he thought was worthless had all but decimated him. First, by using the 128 palms on him, then by shattering his leg. He would never be an active ninja again. The fact that it was Hinata that did it had angered him to no end. The end result was an increase on the bounty on Hinata's head. However, the emperor retaliated by placing a bounty not on Hiashi's head, but on Hanabi. And it was 3 times as much as the bounty on Hinata's head. Fearing that even the Konoha ninja would take his remaining heir, Hiashi decided to back down and the bounties on Hinata and Hanabi were lifted. Your discord is duly noted, Hyuga, Tsunade remarked. Still, advisor Uchiha does have a point. Should we get the emperor on our side, then this war could end before it can start. What else do we know about him, aside from the fact that he took out most of our seasoned Junin and clan heads? I was at the Pakara merchant house at the capital, Asuma began, and from what I've heard about the emperor is that he treats his visitors with great care and respect. Despite being only around 19, he is a brilliant politician and handles all foreign affairs personally. Given the fact that they have merchant houses all over, their economy is excellent. He also has a reputation for honor and fairness. So much so that Waterfall and Smoke, both traditional enemies, appealed to him to settle a dispute. Can't hurt to try, Tsunade said. I will summon Captains Hitaki and Sarutobi and have them lead an envoy from here to the west. Any other business? Silence. This meeting is adjourned. No. Naruto, please. I said no, Naruto snapped. Have you any idea what you're asking me to do, Jiraiya? You're asking me to defend a place that saw me as the Nine Tails, instead of the hero my father wanted me to be. If anything, I'll be glad to see the snake and his buddies raze that damned place to the ground just so I can piss on the ashes. Jiraiya blinked. You know that Orochimaru is planning to attack. The young emperor nodded. You're not the only one with an impressive spy network, Jiraiya. That was one of the things I picked up from you. Ever notice those merchant houses that surfaced recently? The Toad Sage nodded. The Pakara merchant house. I've seen them around. Aside from serving as a mercantile guild, some of them also serve as spies serving my empire, Naruto explained. I got locations in Suna, Kumo, Iwa and even in the fire capital. The ones in Kumo and Iwa contain my spy network. Kumo overthrew A 3 years earlier. I rescued both him and B and offered them sanctuary here. Whether you like it nor not, there is another war on the horizon, Jiraiya replied. A fourth shinobi war. And if Orochimaru or Iwa find out who you are, they will come for you. I know you want to protect your people and country, kid, but you can't fight fate. Naruto scoffed. You sound a lot like Neji. He said the same thing during the Chunin exams, and down in T country. There is no such thing as fate. There is only choice. It was Kokoa's choice to banish me. It was Tsunade's choice to reveal my secret to the Konoha 11. And it was my choice to unify the lands. And you got a choice now, the Toad Sage said in a calm voice, not noticing that Hinata has slipped inside the throne room. The choice to prove that you are better than Konoha. The choice to prove that you are better than me. I know you, kid. You never let your hatred cloud your judgment, nor you never left your people in their darkest hour. He approached the throne and placed one hand on his former student's shoulder. Prove it to Konoha. Prove it to them that you are not what they say you are. Naruto brushed Jiraiya's hand off his shoulder and turned away. Jiraiya did bring up some good points, but his bad experiences in Konoha far outweighed the good. He fought in the Suna Sand invasion and was still scorned. He brought Tsunade to Konoha to be the Godime, and was shunned. To top it off, he retrieved Sasuke Uchiha and was rewarded with banishment, backed by both the civilian and shinobi councils, and betrayed by those he thought were friends. All except Hinata. What about Hinata? Are you willing to let her die? Naruto's response was simple. Why don't you ask her that yourself? She's right behind you. Jiraiya turned around and found himself face to face with a smug empress consort. Even more surprising was that he could sense her chakra levels. Since Jiraiya was a sage, he recognized that aura as one of sage-like power. Another thing that Jiraiya noticed was that Hinata looked, well, hot. With beauty like that, men were more than willing to go to war for. Hello, Toad Sage, Hinata greeted dryly, taking note of the red handprint on his neck. You're the one from Fire Country, I take it. Wah. Hinata. How? I think I should explain, Naruto said as Hinata walked past him and took a seat on the throne. 2 years ago, Suna was hosting the Chunin exams. Gaara had asked me to train Maru, Moegi and Udon for the exams. Hinata was there along with Kiba and Sakura. Flashback. Sunagakure no Sato, Wind Country, 2 years earlier. From his position Naruto watched the confrontation near the village's gates. He recognized Team Kurenai as well as Sakura and Kakashi. The older people were acting as chaperones for the Konoha genin participating in the tournament. We might not be able to see how the genin are doing until tomorrow, Kiba had said to Hinata. How about once we get settled in, we check out the sights? Hinata was starting to get irritated. For the last time, Kiba, my answer is no. It was at that moment, Kiba exploded. The dog ninja grabbed Hinata and forcibly spun her around. Why do you still care for that demon? Kiba shouted. He was banished because he is the Kyuubi incarnate. You heard Tsunade yourself. He can't come back, and if he does, I'll him myself. From his hiding spot, Naruto's eye twitched. He was about ready to neuter the dog lover when Hinata quickly responded. Wham! Kiba staggered back from Hinata, the latter having smashed her palm into his, causing him to double over and lose his lunch over the deck. Touch me again, Inuzuka, and I'll do more than make you puke your guts out, Hinata said, her voice like steel. Get it through your thick skull. I don't like you that way. Before Kiba could try to respond, Sakura decided to give it a try. Hinata, you need to let go. Face facts. Naruto will not, no, cannot return to Konoha, she said, placing one hand on the former heiress' shoulder. He's not welcome there anymore. Not after what he did to Sasuke. Hinata brushed Sakura's hand off her shoulder. That's rich, coming from you. He was only banished because he did his job, she replied, staring down the young medic in training. You of all people should have been trying to defend him, since he saved your life twice. But you chose to kiss the Uchihas like the fangirl that you are. You, Kiba, Ino, Neji, Shikamaru, and everyone else, all of you betrayed him. That's why he is not welcome there anymore. Excuse me. Naruto watched as Hinata stomped off in the direction of the hotel. A small smile crept across his lips. Even after all this time, Hinata had defended him. Ignoring the screaming Sakura as Kakashi and Shino held her back, Naruto made his way back to the Imperial Consulate to prepare. End flashback. It was the same time that Sasuke challenged me to combat, Naruto continued. As you probably know, I've had past encounters with the Konoha ninja following the incident with the Akatsuki attacking the fire temple. I tailed Hinata for the past couple of days, getting her schedule down. Wasn't easy, but I managed to use one of my courier ninja to summon her to the Imperial Consulate. Flashback. Imperial Consulate, Sunagakaure branch. Hinata showed the scroll containing the Imperial insignia, a fox head with a swirling whirlpool in the background, to the guards at the front gate, and they allowed her to pass without incident. Hinata was led to the reception room, where Naruto awaited her arrival. The one thought that was going through Hinata's mind was who would want anything to do with her, especially one from the Western Empire. Of course, that train of thought came to a halt when she was led into the reception room, where she came face to face with the man in black, the same one that has beaten down the majority of the Konoha 11, several clan heads, her father included, Special Junin and one meddling warhawk in his personal route Anbu. His face hidden under the black cage-style cap, Naruto sent Hinata's escort away. Turning to Hinata, he said, "Do you know who I am?" Hinata nodded. "Yes. You're the one that has beaten most of Konoha's top ninja," she replied, not recognizing Naruto. "It's a bit more complicated than that, Hinata," Naruto replied, one hand reaching for his hat. Hinata's eyes went wide as she recognized Konoha's most hated ninja. The same one that she had defended all these years. The whisker-like marks were gone, he was taller, and his hair had taken on a reddish hue, but it was still Naruto. Naruto. Naruto nodded, smiling broadly. "Yeah, it's me, Hinata." Hinata's reaction was instant. She lunged at Naruto and ensnared him in a bear hug, not wanting to let him go. She had nearly given up hope that he was still alive. But here he was, alive and in the employ of the Western Empire. Naruto returned the hug, his chin on the top of Hinata's head. "It's okay, Hinata, it's okay." After prying Hinata away from him, the former genin turned emperor and the former heiress took a seat on the couch. "Hinata, I owe you an apology," Naruto began. "Had I known that you felt the way you did about me back in Konoha, I would have spent more time with you rather than chasing after Sakura." "You were young then," Hinata pointed out. "I'm still young," Naruto pointed out. He then noticed something. Narrowing his eyes, he reached for Hinata. Hinata, sensing what Naruto was planning on doing, grabbed his wrist, and turned away, looking ashamed. "No, Naruto." Naruto could only guess. "Show me." Almost hesitantly, Hinata turned back to him and lifted her bangs. Naruto's eyes widened in horror as to what was on her forehead. The caged bird seal. Hiashi did this, didn't he? Naruto's voice was as cold as ice. Hinata nodded, the tears flowing freely. "Last year, Hanabi, at the council's urging, invoked her right of challenge and challenged me. I lost an FA. No, Hiyashi branded me and shoved me into the cadet branch. He said that not only am I worthless as an heir, but the clan has shown weakness because I supported you. The main branch sees me as worthless and the cadet branch is just as bad. That was all that Hinata had managed to say before she broke down completely. Naruto allowed her to cry into his shoulder. He held her until she finally calmed down. Meanwhile, Naruto was thinking all the ways that he could torture and maim the Hyuga clan. There was one way that he could stick it to Hiyashi and the rest of those stuck-up snobs in the main branch. Hinata found herself being gently pulled to her feet. Once Naruto had smoothed her hair back, exposing the seal, he brought his hands together, as if he was praying. Naruto. Shish. Stand still and trust me, okay? Hinata nodded and closed her eyes. Naruto focused in on the seal on Hinata's forehead. Then he went through hand seals. Slowly at first, but then they began to pick up speed. Naruto then pressed his index and middle finger at the center of the seal. Release, he said. Hinata felt a slight heat on her forehead, a stark contrast as to the bone-wrenching pain she had to endure when she was branded the first place. Then, the sensation was gone. You can open your eyes now, Naruto said as he retrieved one of Hinata's kunai from her pouch and raised it to her face. There, Hinata could see that there was no seal on her forehead. It was no henge either. The caged bird seal, thought by the main branch clan to be irremovable, was removed. What? How? Hinata asked, astonished. I'm a seal master, Naruto explained, smiling broadly. So something like the caged bird seal is easy for me to remove. His tone was modest, rather than being a boast. He was rewarded with another glomp from Hinata. Thank you. Just, thank you. After a moment, Naruto gently pulled away from Hinata. You know you can't go back to Konoha, or to your clan, he said, his tone serious. If Hiyashi sees that you no longer have the seal, he will either rebrand you or worse. Hinata nodded. I know, she replied softly. Before Naruto could ask her to come with him, she beat him to the punch. Naruto, take me with you. I got nothing back home. Please take me with you. You want to go back west with me? Yes. From the look of things, you seem to be pretty connected there. Do you know the Emperor? Will he grant me asylum? It was then that Hinata received the third shock of her life. Of course I know the Emperor, Naruto replied. The Emperor is me, Harem. Hinata looked at Naruto as if he had grown a second head. The Emperor is you. She managed to squeak out right before doing the one thing she hadn't done since Naruto's banishment. She fainted. End flashback. After that, I allowed Hinata to remain inside the consulate, Naruto concluded. From what I've heard, the Konoha ninja combed the entire village looking for her, overlooking the fact that she was inside the consulate. After I defeated Sasuke, Hinata and I left for home, after I punched Hiyashi out again. Huh. Jiraiya grunted. He then noticed the wedding band on Naruto's ring finger and the diamond ring on Hinata's own. So, married, huh? 2 years, Hinata replied, looking at Naruto, smiling. So Naruto's the Emperor, so that makes you. Jiraiya began. Her Imperial Highness, Empress Consort Hinata Namikaze, a voice from behind Jiraiya said. Jiraiya turned around. Standing behind him, having just entered the throne room, was a woman. Standing at Naruto's height with curves and a bosom that could only be matched by Tsunade herself. Long red hair was tied into a single bun, with 2 braids poking out from said bun, the braids ending at the small of her back. Her attire consisted of a formal yukata, red with a black lotus pattern. Green eyes scanned both the emperor and the perverted sage, who stood mesmerized by her beauty. Beauty that men would simply go to war for. She is also one of the best students in the senjutsu arts I have ever come across, the woman said. Senjutsu. Hinata's a sage, Jiraiya said. Third fox sage, the woman replied. Turning to Naruto, she addressed him. I've heard from that someone from Fire County showed up. Never thought it would be the perv. I thought neither you nor Hinata would want anything to do with them again. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. I wasn't expecting him to show up, he replied in his own defense, as Jiraiya pulled out his notebook, intending on using the woman for research for his next Ika novel. However, the woman stopped him. You haven't changed, Toad Sage. Even after 20 years. Jiraiya stopped. You know me. The woman smiled meanly. Jiraiya took notice of the elongated canines in her mouth. Of course. The last time we met, I made a stop at a certain village in Fire Country. As she said that, 9 tails emerged from her backside. 9 crimson fox tails, which waved lazily around her as if they had a life of their own. The name's Katami Akashiya, she introduced herself. Chief Prime Minister of the Western Empire. But you know me by my official title, Kyuubi no Yuko, the 9-tailed fox. Konoha, the Hokage's office. Tsunade Senju sat behind her desk, Shizune standing beside and to the side of her, Taunton in her arms. Standing before the Godime was a 6-ninja team consisting of 6 Junin. A team she hoped was the salvation of the Leaf. 4 of them were part of the original Konoha 11, but she had chosen each of them for a different reason. First up, was the team leader, Anbu member and former sensei of the now-defunct Cell 7, Kakashi Hatake. Wielder of the Sharingan, a memento from his late teammate Obito Uchiha, he was a master of over 1,000 jutsu, and the former sensei of the banished Naruto Uzumaki. Kurenai Yuahi Sachirobe was the former captain of Cell 8. The wife of Asuma Sarutobi, she was Konoha's chief genjutsu master, capable of confusing the enemy with her illusions. The double team of Kiba Inuzuka and his giant dog Akamaru were also a valued asset to the team, and his rank of Junin proved that. He was also the first to turn against Naruto when it became known that he was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, having taken the side of his mother and sister. For Rakan, Shino Aburame was Tsunade's next choice. His chakra-eating bugs would prove quite useful for the mission ahead. Next up was Tsunade's apprentice, Ino Yamanaka. 1/3 of the Ino Shika Cho trio, she had proven to be one of the best medic ninjas ever produced by the Leaf. Originally, both Ino and Sakura Haruno were apprenticed to Tsunade, but when it became clear that Ino was proving to be the better student, Sakura was furious. It was after this that Sakura's ninja career began to suffer, despite the fact that Tsunade had given them equal time together. Then, following her defeat at the hands of Hinata Namikaze, Sakura became a liability. Sakura's pride would eventually be her downfall, as she had assaulted a Chunin, thinking that she was Ino. In response to the assault, Tsunade had terminated Sakura's apprenticeship under her and revoked her ninja registration. Not even Sakura's mother, whose influence was strong on the civilian side, could sway the vote in her favor, since the incident happened in full view of the fire daimyo. Last, was Shikamaru Nara. Aside from being a master strategist, the slacker had somehow made Junin and under his father's tutelage, was an expert in politics, making him the perfect man for the job. Reporting as ordered, Lady Hokage, Kakashi said. Tsunade didn't waste no time in explaining. This is a SS-ranked mission. It is apparent that Konoha will soon be attacked by Oto, Iwa and Kumo. We cannot survive this war without any help. That is why you are going to the Western Empire to seek an audience with the Emperor, to try to get him to aid us in this war. If not, then Konoha will fall. This was a surprise to those assembled. No one in Konoha had ventured to the west since the first Hokage was in office, due to the ongoing wars. This was pretty new for them. All they heard was that someone about their age had unified the lands and was made emperor. On top of that, the empire had alliances with both Suna and Mist, which could prove invaluable for the war ahead. The future of the Leaf hangs in the balance, Tsunade said. Which is why you must not fail. Travel through the neutral countries. Do not attract any unwanted attention. You leave now. The gathered ninja bowed in response. As they began to leave the room, Tsunade ordered Kakashi and Kurenai to remain behind. Once the younger ninja were gone, Tsunade addressed Kakashi and Kurenai. I did not want to say anything in front of the others, but the both of you have a secondary mission. If you come across Naruto in your mission. Kakashi nodded, as did Kurenai. We will ask him to come back to Konoha, Kakashi said.